From the editors of Cook's Illustrated magazine, it's America's Test Kitchen. With your host, Christopher Kimball. Featuring Test Kitchen chefs Julia Collin-Davison, Bridget Lancaster, Becky Hayes, with Adam Reed in the Equipment Corner and Jack Bishop in the Tasting Lab. Discover the secrets of America's foremost food testers and tasters. Today on America's Test Kitchen. Today on America's Test Kitchen, Bridget shows Chris how to make the ultimate grilled bone-in pork roast. Next, Adam reveals his top pick for whole fish baskets in the Equipment Corner. Then, gadget guru Lisa reveals her favorite summertime kitchen gadgets. Finally, Julia uncovers the Test Kitchen secrets for foolproof charcoal grilled sea scallops. That's all right here on America's Test Kitchen. America's Test Kitchen is brought to you by DCS by Fisher & Paykel. America's cooks rely on innovation and culinary precision. DCS by Fisher & Paykel, offering premium indoor and outdoor kitchen appliances.
And by Kohler, inspiring home chefs to create a professional level kitchen with innovative sinks, faucets, and cook centers. Kohler.
And by Diamond Crystal Salt for the professional chef and those who want to cook like one. Diamond Crystal, the gourmet choice. By Cooking.com, an online retailer for the kitchen enthusiast. If it's not in your kitchen, try ours. By Plum Amazins, diced dried plums from Sunsweet for amazing recipes. By Miracle Grow, the gardener's friend. By California Avocados. And by Chateau San Michel.
Before we do a grilled bone-in pork roast with Bridget, let's talk a little bit about roasts themselves and where they come from. Well, obviously, if it's pork, it comes from my favorite animal, the pig. And we're talking about the loin, which starts at the shoulder, the loin all the way back to the ham. In fact, we have that entire loin right here, which you rarely see. You'll never see in a supermarket. But there are 4 different roasts that come from the loin. This is towards the shoulder area, and this is called a blade end pork roast. And this is actually a very good roast. It has a tremendous amount of flavor. The problem is it does need to be tied because it's got a lot of different muscles and connective tissue there. The other problem is it's a little hard to find. The second is a center cut rib roast, which is right here, which comes from this area of the loin. It has one big muscle. You can see it here. It does tend to dry out if not left on the bone, but otherwise it's our top choice. Then you get down to a center cut loin roast. This one has 2 very different muscles. It has this muscle, that's the tenderloin right here, you can see it. And it also has the loin muscle, which is the same muscle that occurs in this roast. The only problem with this is it does have 2 different muscles which cook at slightly different rates. One other thing, it has this funny like T-bone here. It's a little bit hard to carve. Finally, there's the sirloin roast, and this is kind of a mess. It has a lot of different muscles, had a lot of different bones, very hard to carve, so we don't recommend that. For this recipe with Bridget, for a grilled bone-in pork roast, we're going to take the center cut rib roast. Has great flavor, and if you cook it with the bone in, it makes a terrific dinner.
All right, Chris, you've talked about all this meat. It's time to cook up this beautiful roast. This is a 4 to 5 pound center cut rib roast. Now, sometimes you go to the supermarket, it'll have this, and this is the chine bone attached. So what we like to do is ask the butcher to remove this tip here, and if they leave any of that bone on, if they can cut through the bone just to make it later on easier for us to slice.
Do you know why it's called the chine bone?
I do not, but I'm sure you do.
En France, on dit échine, l'échine. Échine, en France, means backbone.
Oh. Well, this one has the chine bone removed, and they actually did a great job, but we have a little bit of work to do. Now, this is the membrane on it. So to remove it, you can either take a boning knife or you can take a butter knife, slip it between the membrane and the meat. Then you can take some paper towels, grab a little piece of that membrane, and start tearing it off, just like that. And pat this dry. Now you see this fat cap attached? Mm-hmm. The fat is going to baste the meat. But if you find any pieces that are thicker than about 1/4 inch, you do want to take a boning knife and just slice it down so that it's just a nice thin layer of fat. You don't want too much on there. All right, now we're going to create a crosshatch pattern. It's very easy to do. Just going to make marks about 1 inch apart right through the fat. Really don't want to get into the meat itself, but we just want to cut into the fat. It's going to help to release that fat more on the grill. That looks tasty to me. So one last thing that we have to do is we're going to salt this, and this is 4 teaspoons of kosher salt. Just rub it all over the meat. We're doing this instead of brining because once on the grill, we want this to have a really nice dried crust on the outside. I'm gonna wrap this up, piece of plastic wrap, nice and tight. So I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator. It's a good idea to let it stay in there for at least 6 hours, but 24 hours in advance is more ideal.
So one of the questions I had when we tested this recipe is why not just do a boneless roast of pork instead of actually having the ribs on? And we did know one thing. We knew that the fat and connective tissue around the bone does actually add flavor. Fat melts, add flavor, as does the connective tissue. And the bone also acts as an insulator, so the meat's very juicy, a little less dry. The question really was, does the bone itself add flavor? So we did an experiment. We made fake pork. We used mashed potatoes with 1% salt by weight and 8% butter, which approximates the flesh of pork. And we baked one in the oven, just the mashed potatoes. And we baked another one with some of the ribs on top, and they were scraped of all the fat and connective tissue, just the bone. With the bone add flavor, and we roasted it and did a blind taste test, and guess what? Everybody could tell that the mashed potatoes next to the bones on top, actually had more flavor. Why? Well, the marrow inside the bone has flavor molecules. They do take a long time to come out of the bone. It is not instantaneous, but over a long period of roasting, you'll actually get some of that flavor coming out of the marrow, through the bone, into the meat. So bone in is always more flavorful than boneless.
So to set up the grill for the pork, and of course we want to get lots of nice smoky flavor into the meat. So what I've done is soak 2 cups of wood chips, and those are just plain hickory chips. And then I drained them and put them right into this smoker tray. It's great, and it comes with this type of grill. So just heat up and ignite the flame, and I want to turn all the burners to high. Then cover the grill and let it heat up completely for about 15 minutes until the surface is incredibly hot. Now, if your grill doesn't have one of these smoker boxes, it's easy to do an alternative way. Just simply put the soaked and drained chips right into a disposable pie plate, and then put that pie plate on a cold primary burner. That's the burner that you're going to leave on during the whole time of cooking, and heat up your grill, again covered, for 15 minutes.
Today I have a bunch of fun gadgets that I think you'll enjoy. The first is called the Prepare a Pop Saver. It's kind of a twist on a classic chef's tool, which is called a salt pig. They use this next to the stove. They can just reach in and grab their salt as they work. It's got a silicone top. It pops open and closed. If you'd rather not touch, there's a little spoon holder on the back. It's $20, the Prepare a Pop Saver. This is another kind of pig. It's a piggy steamer lid. It's made of silicone. It's nice and soft. You can put it on anything when you're microwaving. It steams it all. The heat distributes really well. There's some little nostrils here that vent the steam. The ears stay cool. It's not just cute. It's $18, the piggy steamer lid. Over here I have the Easy Twist and Sparkle Beverage Carbonator. It's very compact. It just has these 2 parts. You put any kind of liquid in here. There's a fill line for water, one for any other kind of juice. You can make your own sodas. You just open it up, put in one of these cartridges, drop it down. When you put it on, it starts to work. That's it. $49.95, and you can make your own drinks. Here's one more thing that I just thought was the greatest. It's a Zoku Quick Pop Maker. Use this once and you'll just fall in love with it the way I did. You put the base in the freezer. The first time you have to put it in for 24 hours. You can just keep it in there. Put the little sticks in place they give you. Pour in any kind of liquid. You can use juice or whatever you like. You can make layers of different things. They have all these accessory kits. There's a tool here. When it's frozen, you just screw this on. Very easy. You feel it loosening up. Then you just unscrew that. Put on your little drip catcher, which is very nice. Pull it out, and look at that. It's so awesome. I use 3 kinds of juice. It got stripes. You can tilt it and make them go on an angle. They have accessory kits. You can put pieces of fruit in there. You can drizzle chocolate on the outside. It's kind of fun. Zoku Quick Pop Maker, $49.95. We love it.
So are you well preheated, Bridget?
I am, so's the grill.
Oh, good.
Want to clean this grill off, just use a grill brush, scrape off those grates, get rid of any residue that might be on there. Might make our food taste kind of funky. And then, to make sure that our food doesn't stick, I like to take a wad of paper towels and dip it into a little bit of vegetable oil. Always a good idea to use long handled tongs for this job. And just run it over the grates. I mentioned before, this is our primary burner, and we do want to leave it on, but I want to adjust the heat to medium-high. I'm going to turn the other two burners off. And so we're going to get heat from one side, but not directly under the pork. So we're not going to risk burning the pork.
Okay.
So this is 1.5 teaspoons of ground pepper. Just rub it all over that pork. And this is really a study in minimalism.
Well, I was going to say,
here.
you become a minimalist cook?
That's
It doesn't
right.
sound like you.
All right, let's put this on the grill. I'm going to put it close to the primary burner with the bones facing away from the fire. So I'm just going to cook this covered until the internal temperature of that pork reaches about 140 degrees, and that's going to take anywhere from 1¼ hours to 1.5 hours.
Okay.
All right, so it's been about 1¼ hours. Let's take a look and check the internal temperature of that pork. Isn't she gorgeous? We're hitting 141 is close enough. And we want to loosely tent it with foil because we're going to let this rest for about 30 minutes, and that's pretty important. All those precious juices that are in the meat are going to be reabsorbed by the fibers. The meat is going to be incredibly juicy. All right, let's take a peek under here. Now, this roast has been resting for 30 minutes, and I see you didn't make off with it. So that gives us a little bit of time to make a quick salsa. And since it's smoky pork flavors, we thought a Cuban-style orange and lime flavored salsa would be perfect. So I've got 5 oranges here, which we've peeled, segmented, and then we cut each of those segments in half. Goes right in, along with 1/2 teaspoon of the orange zest. We've got a jalapeno here, which we've stemmed and seeded and minced. This is 1/2 of a red onion, again minced. And 1 garlic clove, minced. All right, so I've got 2 teaspoons each of fresh lime juice, 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley, and 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. Gives a little bit of richness. Now I've got 2 teaspoons brown sugar, and 1.5 teaspoons each of fresh oregano and just plain old white vinegar. Finally, I've got 1/2 teaspoon of ground cumin that goes in, and this is a mixture here of 1/2 teaspoon salt and pepper. Easy, easy, stir it up. If you let it sit for a few minutes, it tastes even better. But
we're
right
not
with,
gonna wait.
that's right, we're not gonna
I
wait.
can tell.
Perfect. Oh, look how juicy that is. Oh yeah. A little bit of salsa to go with that, Chris.
Yep.
There you go. Oh. That fat cap is rendered. It's all crispy. Oh, help me. That's so good.
See, you go lie down for a while. So great grilled bone-in pork roast starts with something very simple, which is salting. Let that sit in the fridge at least 6 hours, up to 24. Preheated that gas grill on high, primary burner to medium high, everything else off. You grill for about 1.5 hours, and we made a very simple orange Cuban-inspired salsa. Took about, 90 seconds. There you have it, the easiest pork roast in the world. It's fabulous. For America's Test Kitchen, your kitchen, another great, this time very easy recipe for grilled bone-in pork roast. In Paris, the oldest cookware store is called De Lorrain, and in that store you can find things from a long ago culinary past, including the duck press, a whisk as big as your head, and of course you can find the fish basket. So I'm here with Adam Reed in the equipment garden today to find out if anyone in their right mind really needs to go buy a fish basket.
Chris, I will have you demonstrate how to flip a whole fish on the grill. Why don't you take these 2 spatulas, they're both fish spatulas, and try and get that thing turned over intact with the skin. Careful, careful.
Hold on. Perfect.
That's what happens when you try and do it the
Maybe that's why they don't let me
old-fashioned
cook here
way.
in the test kitchen.
I couldn't do any better. I've trashed every whole fish I've tried to turn. That's why we gathered 6 of these fish grilling baskets to test. Most of them are non-stick. The price range was $11 to $25. Now, our testers found 3 different design features that made a difference in performance. The first one was the handle. And this is what happens if the handle is fixed in place. You put it on the grill, and the handle rests on the side.
I don't understand that.
The basket won't lie flat on the grill grate and the fish cooks unevenly. The other problem that we had with these fixed handled models is that they had to go into the dishwasher diagonally, so they hogged a lot of space. However, we also found that not all removable handles are created the same. This one, for instance, it's got 2 little pins and 2 little holes that the pins have to go into. And it was really hard to line up these pins with the grill, and the clip didn't work that well. So that was a problem. This one, on the other hand, it's almost like tongs. It slides into these openings here. You hold on to it, you turn it, really easy to line up. Another design feature was the distance between the wires on these things. This one is 1 3/4 inches, as opposed to this one here is about 2 1/4 inches. So why don't you pick that one up and try and turn those small red snappers over? That's exactly what happened to our testers. The last issue was capacity. Our tests were with these small 3/4 pound red snappers and larger striped bass, about 1 3/4 pounds or 2 pounds. In order to fit the larger fish into one of these guys, we actually had to cut the head off.
Nice.
And that trashes the appearance of the thing. And part of the reason you grill a whole fish is to have a grandiose appearance. In these larger baskets, they fit in just fine. So I'm actually holding the winner. This is the Charcoal Companion Ultimate Non-Stick Fish Grilling Basket. It was $25, but it had all the features we like. A removable handle that's easy to put back on, a lot of capacity, wires that were spaced to keep all the fish right in there.
So the answer to my question is, are fish baskets still a la mode?
They
The
are.
answer is the Charcoal Companion for $25 is actually a nice investment, except if you don't like fish.
And who doesn't like fish? It's brain
Vermonters
food.
don't like it.
Oh, yeah, good point.
You just know that some things in life are predictably bad, like death and taxes, but some things sound great, but are also really terrible ideas, like, hey, scallops on the grill. It's a Tuesday night, you buy some nice sea scallops, throw them on a grill, and 5 or 10 minutes later, you have a great dinner. Or not. You put the scallops on the grill, and the first thing you try to do is flip them over, and, well, sometimes they break apart like that, they stick. The other problem is, by the time you get a nice sear on the outside, what happens to the inside? They're overcooked. So let's go into the test kitchen with Julie and figure out how to do great grilled scallops. So I've thought about this whole grilling scallop problem. I have a solution. Jumbo shrimp.
Nice.
That's easy.
Yeah, problem solved.
Problem solved. But these are not shrimp.
These are not shrimp, these are scallops. So when you're buying scallops for grilling, there's 2 things you want to look for. First is size. The bigger the better, because the bigger they are, the longer they can spend on the grill and more time you can spend getting a crust on the outside without the scallop overcooking. The other thing you want to look for is that they're dry versus wet. Now, wet means they've been processed in a chemical solution which helps keep them moist and plump. Dry means they haven't been treated at all. So look for dry scallops. Prepping scallops is pretty easy. The only thing you have to do is there's this little side muscle that's very tough. You can just pull that gently off. So before you start grilling, you want to pull them out of their packaging, put them on a towel, and let them rest at room temperature for about 10 minutes. Let all the moisture get wicked away by the towel. Meanwhile, we're going to make a quick sauce to serve with our scallops. It's going to be a chili lime vinaigrette, and this is 3 tablespoons of lime juice.
Why do you smile every time you say chili?
Because I know you're not a big fan of the spicy food, and I like to see you sweat.
Like a little.
This is 2 tablespoons of honey. And the spice we're gonna get from sriracha, which is a spicy chili paste. Do you want to taste a little?
I know you just kept getting it closer to my nose.
See if you'll sneeze. This is a tablespoon of sriracha, 2 teaspoons of fish sauce, which has that distinctive fermented fish smell, but really tastes great in a vinaigrette like
So
this.
we have like dead fermented fish. We have a lot of spice. So
Yep.
far, so good.
Some lime zest. This is a teaspoon of freshly grated lime zest. We're going to stir this together, and then we're going to slowly whisk in the oil. And we're going to use vegetable oil, obviously, because it doesn't have a lot of flavor. Olive oil would really taste out of place here. We're going to whisk in 1/2 cup of vegetable oil. So I'm going to drizzle it in slowly while I'm whisking to try to make a little bit of an emulsion, and then we'll whisk it together again before we serve it, obviously.
And meanwhile, let's talk a little bit more about dry scallops versus wet. Well, how do you know which is which? Well, you can't really tell when you go to the supermarket. When you bring one home, take one of the scallops, put it on a paper towel on a plate, into a microwave on high for 15 seconds. If you get this big ring of moisture, it's a wet scallop. If you don't, this one's a dry scallop. Well, how do they make wet scallops? Well, they add a chemical to it called STPP. It's called sodium tripolyphosphate. What does it do? Well, it helps to retain moisture when they thaw out, which means they're heavier, which means they can charge more. It also covers up fish that's not particularly fresh, gives it a nice lustrous look, and also takes care of that odor sometimes from older scallops. Wet scallops tend to have a soapy, slightly bitter aftertaste. So if it turns out you've bought wet scallops, what do? Well, you make a little brine. It's a quart of cold water, 2 tablespoons of table salt, 1/4 cup of lemon juice. Put the scallops in for half an hour. About 10% of the STPP will come out of the solution, but what it really does is mask that soapy, bitter aftertaste. So they will, in fact, taste better.
So these scallops have been sitting for about 10 minutes and drying, and now we're going to get them ready for the grill. And of course, it's easier to put scallops on a skewer when grilling them. The only thing you want to keep in mind is you want to put like-sized scallops on the same skewer so that they will cook at the same rate. And you're going to put about 4 to 6 scallops on a skewer. Offset that skewer just a little bit. And of course, if you just use one skewer, they'll spin around on you.
This is very organized. Did you ever like work for the Army or something? I mean,
I do like things kind of organized.
I guess so.
So you take a second skewer and you put it in right next to the first one, you know, about a 1/4 inch apart. So after we finish skewering up these scallops, we're going to put them back on the towels, cover them with towels, and keep them in the refrigerator until we're ready to grill. And then I'm going to head outside and I'm going to build a big fire, a little bit more than our usual chimney, which is 6 quarts. I'm going to light 7 quarts of charcoal. All right, so I got the charcoal lit. And of course, there's lots of ways to get a really hot charcoal fire. One technique that's kind of weird that we found online, and that's you put the whole grill grate right on top of the chimney. I know, it's kind of tippy, which made us throw it out the window. And you thought that was a good idea, right? Well, it was brilliant because this is a nice concentrated hot fire.
If you had like 4 scallops.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, but using that theory, what we're going to do is make our own concentrated fire using this disposable aluminum pan. This is a 9 by 13 inch aluminum pan. We're going to poke vent holes in the bottom. You want them about 1/2 inch big. Using scissors and of course putting it on a wire rack. You want to make about 12 and you want to space them evenly throughout the bottom.
And this is just for airflow to keep the coals going, I assume?
That's right.
Yeah.
And once you get them in there, you can then kind of hold it up and make them bigger.
Did you really like kindergarten?
I love crafts.
Yeah, you're definitely doing crafts.
All right, and that's it. So using this pan, we're going to dump the coals into the pan right in the middle of the grill. And there you go. Oh, nice concentrated fire. Okay, we're going to put the grill grate on and let it heat up until it's really hot. That'll take about 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
While this is heating up, we're going to turn our attention to the scallops. And another trick we found when grilling scallops is to give them a little coating, much like velveting when you make a stir fry. So this is 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, a tablespoon of all-purpose flour, teaspoon of cornstarch, and a teaspoon of sugar. And that combo not only gives it a little protection, but also makes it brown really well. And season them with salt and pepper. We're gonna do the same to the other side. All right, and that's all they need for the grill. So this grill's been heating up for about 5 minutes, and you can see it is nice and hot in this area. Now this perfect time to clean the grill. So the first thing you wanna do is just give it a quick scrub down to make sure there's no stuck on bits from the last time you were grilling. And then to give it a non-stick surface, you take some vegetable oil, a wad of paper towels, and a pair of long tongs. You just rub it back and forth over the grill grates so we're ready to grill our scallops. We're gonna lay them right on the hot coals. And it's about 2 to 4 minutes per each side. We're gonna flip them over, obviously, halfway through cooking.
Okay.
Don't those look good?
They do look gorgeous.
All right, so I had the kitchen make some overdone and underdone scallops so we can really see the difference. And you can see this one, quite rubbery, and it's white throughout the middle. And that's gonna be a little bit tough. And this one is quite underdone. You can see it's very opaque in the very middle, and it's quite squishy.
It's sushi bar scallops.
It is sushi bar scallops. Now, if we can, by comparison, we'll look at ours, and you'll see it's right in the middle of the two. So it's very translucent in the middle, but you know, a nice white all around the edge. And that's perfectly done. And we're gonna serve this, of course, with our chili lime vinaigrette that we made. We did cook a lot of scallops to get to this point.
Those are really good.
Oh, perfectly cooked, tender in the center with that nice crust on the outside.
So we cook thousands of scallops, so you don't have to, and here's the recipe. Buy dry scallops if you can, double thread them on skewers, and then the real secret was flour, cornstarch, oil, a slurry to coat them. They won't stick on the grill and get a nice outside coating, and a chili lime vinaigrette to finish. So from America's Test Kitchen to your kitchen, a fabulous and very easy recipe for grilled scallops with a chili lime vinaigrette. If you'd like this recipe and all the recipes from this year's episodes, go to americastestkitchentv.com. You'll also find tastings, testings, and you can watch selected episodes of our show. And you can also find us at Twitter and Facebook.
America's Test Kitchen is brought to you by DCS by Fisher & Paykel. America's cooks rely on innovation and culinary precision. DCS by Fisher & Paykel. offering premium indoor and outdoor kitchen appliances. For over 50 years, Miracle-Gro products have helped home chefs grow fresh vegetables and herbs. Miracle-Gro soils and plant foods provide the essential nutrients plants need to grow bountiful produce. Gardening tips are available online at miraclegro.com. BuyCooking.com, an online retailer for the kitchen enthusiast. If it's not in your kitchen, try ours. Chateau San Michel. Digital wine cellar and pairings can be found online. From our hands to your table. Recipes available at CaliforniaAvocado.com. And by Kohler. Diamond Crystal Salt, the gourmet choice. Plum Amazins from Sunsweet.